Ivan Pavlov was a Russian physiologist born in 1849. Whilst he studied the digestion pattern in dogs, he accidentally came across a discovery, now known as the theory of classical conditioning. This discovery revolved around the idea that a stimulus produces a learned response within an animal or person. Pavlov's study specifically explored the learned responses of dogs, conditioned to associate the ringing of a bell with food, bringing about a salivatory response. This theory can be broken down into 3 stages. The first stage is before conditioning, where the dogs naturally salivated at the sight of food with no response occurring with a separate stimulus of ringing a bell. The second stage is during conditioning, where Pavlov completed a series of experiments where he repeatedly rang the bell before food was given. The third and final stage is after conditioning, with the dogs learning to salivate when they heard this bell, even when no food was visible. Ultimately, Pavlov came to the conclusion that certain behaviours can be learned through association. Monique will now discuss how John Watson was inspired by Pavlov's theory and how he applied it to children's behaviour.
Thank you, Hazel. As mentioned, John Watson was influenced by Pavlov's research into conditioning of animals. Watson went on further to research if classic conditioning could be applied to humans. His most famous experiment took place in 1920 and became known as Little Albert. This infant was conditioned to fear a rat, and furthermore his fear went on to include other furry objects. Watson achieved his theory by conditioning the infant to associate the rat with a negative stimuli. That negative stimuli consisted of Watson banging on a metal pipe whenever that infant would try to touch the rat. As a result, the infant began to fear the sight of the rat because he had associated it with the loud noise. These observations proved to Watson that behavioural learning is based on stimulus-response mechanics, which ultimately comes from environmental exposure. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to our presentation. We truly hope it will be of much use for your future studies. Thank you.